Alright, so we're going to go over some of the problems that usually occur with rivet guns, and a lot of them is due to not tightening properly. And a perfect example of that is your nose housing here. This is one that's brand new on the tip. This is one that's actually been used and wore down. And you can see the difference here. That one is shorter and one is longer. Now, what exactly that does is that whenever you have this tightened into your housing, this will push back on your jaws and open them up. And I have your jaws here in a nut just as an example, but that will push in your jaws and open them up. And here's a perfect example of that happening right now. If your jaws aren't opening properly, it will not let your rivet feed in properly. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that's 100% your problem. That could just be one thing happening. So we're going to open this up. And going back to our first statement of everything not being properly tightened, you see how loose this is? I can turn that by hand. That should not be able to be turned by hand. That should be tightened with a wrench. When it's tightened properly, you should be able to feed a rivet in. Now, if you can't, then you may have a problem with your stroke. See, that solves that problem, just exactly like we were talking about. If it doesn't, then you may have a problem with your stroke, and you get a couple of things, regions that are wrong with your stroke. Here's probably your number one reason for your catalyst here. This is your piston rod spring. It's located inside your handle here. Your piston rod goes down inside this spring. This is a brand new piston rod spring. This is one that's been used, and you can see how it collapses over time. Please refer to your manual to how often to change these. This is one that's been used so bad that it is literally broken. You can see the top here, and it's collapsed and it's rolled onto itself, locked itself in. That's one of your main causes for losing your stroke. And a perfect example of what a loss of stroke looks like is your rivet here is just barely pulled. I don't know if you can see that. Here's another one that's just barely pulled. Both of those are just barely pulled, and that is a loss of stroke. One of the identifiers there. Now, that one is pulled about probably 7/8 of the way down. So you can see the difference there between the three. This has good stroke. These two have improper stroke here. Another loss of stroke is your piston bolt loose on the bottom of your piston. So if your piston bolt is loose, which goes back to our first statement of the things being improperly tightened, you're going to get a loss of stroke. And this is what happens whenever you pull your trigger. This extends, pressure extends. You're going to get a loss of stroke because your plate is normally here, and that's going to stop you. So that's going to give you a short stroke. Now you can remedy that by looking at one of our earlier videos and tightening that down with thread locker. Now, another common occurrence and problems is your jaw guide, your mandrel guide here falling out. This is what that part is supposed to look like. If you notice, your barb fittings are broken off. This is what this tube does. This is what this guide does. It keeps mandrels from falling down inside the piston, which is making you lose your stroke. You notice that the mandrels broke off inside here, and your piston is not returned. Whenever your piston does return, it should be at the top. This will go forward. Your jaws will open up against your nose housing here, and you'll be able to feed your rivets in correctly. Whenever your jaw pusher spring is collapsed, which they recommend replacing when it's at short of 2 inches, per your manual, this is the brand new one above here, and it's 2 1/4. And notice the one on the bottom is collapsed and it's 2 inches. So if your spring is 2 inches short, you need to replace it. Your spring is going to push against your jaw pusher, which is going to open up and turn by your tip pushing against your jaws and allowing you to have the correct feed. So this needs to be tightened. Your housing needs to be tightened with the wrench. You shouldn't be able to take it off by hand like I just did. And this needs to be tightened also. And that's whenever you get 100% function, proper function.